Mhm. Hello, good morning, good morning. Good morning out there, people. Good morning, Wadabevi. How are you? How's work? I'm just whipping up my Oleado. Okay, good morning, Rebecca. Good morning, Carla. Rebecca, I sent you a text. Need you to get that thing filled out. Also, Mitch and Ricky, we need their Medicaid numbers. So if they want to text those to me, they can. Mitch, good morning. I saw you guys filled out the form, except you did not put Mitch, and Ricky did not put your Medicaid numbers. That's the most important thing for the lab. That's how they keep track of you. Medicaid number. And you have to make sure to put all of the zeros, whatever. Okay, so what's up, Wadabevi? Oh, as you're doing that, I'm going to say our morning intro home. So good morning. This is Department of Career Services, where our goal is to help you on your journey through this life. And man, did I have a good Christology class last night. All I can tell you, people, all I can tell you, Christians, is it is not what you think. It's not what you think. If you don't look at the history of the Bible, it is not what you think. Wow. But the reason is this: is there any point trying to talk to first graders who are just trying to understand what numbers are? Is there any point trying to talk to them about differential equations and calculus and stuff like that? It's not possible. It's impossible. They don't understand it. You can't get to calculus until you go through everything before that. It doesn't make any sense. And the challenge, the problem is we get a basic understanding. We say, here is the Bible. The Bible is inerrant. There are no mistakes in this. It is divinely given from God. So don't question it. Kind of like the Muslims in the around 1000 AD, where they said to do science was to question God. So they stopped doing science. And that's what's happened here. We have no clue. If you think the Bible is inerrant, it's not meant for that purpose. But here would be a question. This is a question the teacher, our professor, asked us last night. So everybody just write it down. What is your quick answer? Just your quick answer. Don't think about it just like in 5 words or less, 10 words or less. What happened to your soul when you die? Matt, good morning. I sent you a text. I need you to fill out that form, that link. Rebecca sent it to you also. Need to fill it out for Dr. Linden. I was supposed to do this on Tuesday, and with the car troubles and everything else, oops, didn't happen. So I got kicked in the proverbial balls yesterday while I was in class. So we need everybody to get those things done. But what happens to your soul when you die? What happens to your soul when you die? Just your quick answer. Beep, bop, beep, bop, beep, bop, beep, bop. I'll fill it out right now. Okay. What happens to your soul when you die? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How come nobody's writing anything down? What happens to your soul when you die? Strangers, chime in. So we have the Fab Five. What happens to your soul when you die? My soul goes somewhere. Okay. Now, when you say soul, Rebecca, is that the bottom of your foot? What happens to your soul when you die? It exits the body. Okay, so this isn't really a trick question. As we're talking about this, or as you're thinking about it, I will tell you that Jesus was a Jew. They were out there dealing with the Jews in Palestine, what we now call Israel. And after Jesus died, the big thing was bringing the Gentiles in. Went from being a primarily, almost exclusively Jewish thing to almost exclusively not Jewish. Went to a Gentile thing. Instead of being in Israel, it got moved to Rome with Gentiles. The problem is Gentiles and Jews think differently. They have a different philosophical base. And now if you go read the Gospels, you'll see that first century Palestinian Jews thought differently. We are imposing upon them what we believe. But if you look at it and you see what was said, you'll say, I never noticed that. But that's exactly right. But nobody told me that. You look at the Old Testament, golly gee, nobody told me that. So the challenge was, how do you bring Gentiles, who are mainly Greek thinking, Greek philosophy, Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, they're smart people, had that. How do you bring those people into a Jewish thing where they think very differently? For the Jews, there was no soul. People did not have a soul. The resurrection was of your body, and your body was your complete you. There was no dualism. So in Greek thought, we had a soul, a mind that was separate from the body. We had a soul that was separate from the body. And so the Greeks, the Gentiles couldn't understand this resurrection thing. And then it gets we don't have time to do that. But there was this big problem of the resurrection. And so in the Jesus story, he dies, he goes to hell for 3 days, and he's resurrected. If it was a Greek type of thing, the way we understand, the way everybody's answering the question, would be, well, his soul went somewhere else and his body stayed in the tomb. No, for Jews, if you had a body with no soul, that was like a monster, that was a spirit, that was a ghost. The body and soul were one. And in Jewish resurrection, back in the 1st century AD, or in the 1st century, resurrection was of the complete person. You came back as a complete person, not your soul went over here and then you got a different body over there. That's not how it was. But for the Greeks, that was it did not work. So over the next 300 or 400 years, they would have these councils where they would try to reconcile these. So how could we bring culture of the world into this Jesus thing? So the question was asked, what happened if there had been a Hindu merchant in one of the places that Jesus was talking? And he became not a disciple, but a follower. And he took that back to India. And it took root. And then you had these councils where it wasn't just Jewish thought meeting at these councils with Roman Greek philosophy thought, Like, how do we make sense of this? But you also added in Hindu people with their thought. And the answer is it would be different. If we did not incorporate, if our religion did not incorporate Greek thought, this dualism, we would not have what we understand to be Christianity today. This all came about hundreds of years after Jesus, because people fundamentally, Gentiles could not, grew up under a belief that there is a dualism. People have a soul. We have a soul, we have a body. The body dies, the soul continues. That was not Jewish thought. That was not part of Judaism. Period. End of story. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. There was no soul. You died, and when there was the day of resurrection, you came back. There was no soul that went to heaven. There was no soul that went to hell. You died, and you were waiting for the second coming. And you would then be resurrected as Jesus was resurrected. There was no soul from Jesus in that body. Anyway, wow. Very interesting. So I asked that question. What if there was Hindus back during these councils contributing how the Indian mind worked, or Buddhists contributing, well, here's how we see it in Buddhism, because that's basically what these councils were. The Greek people growing up with this dualism. And it was big stuff, big problems of, did Mary give birth to God? She gave birth to a man, but Mary, a human, could not give birth to God. So if Jesus was God, how could Mary give birth? Really complex stuff. So, but it comes down, the interesting thing is it comes down to what we believe. The simple stuff we believe is highly influenced by things that have nothing to do with God. Our religion today is the result of Greek philosophy, of Aristotle, of Plato, of the Stoics, of all of that, because it would not have taken root with the Greek people. And, just again, a very simple thing. Jews did not believe in a soul. You had no soul. Jesus died. He went to hell. When he was resurrected, his body was resurrected. There was no soul. There was no duality to him. Anyway. Okay, well, see, this is the kind of thing we do. This is the kind of thing you say before you go to graduate school. Yeah, it doesn't really matter that the Gospels were written so late. If you look at anybody, if you look at Alexander, when were the stories about Alexander written? When were the stories about Buddha written? When were the stories about anybody written? They were written late. There was an oral tradition. People were not like us. They didn't have these where they read. They had oral stories. So, and in those oral stories are creeds. Again, this is something people that don't go to graduate school don't know. Inside the Gospels are really old stuff that was coming about a couple years after Jesus. So it doesn't really matter that the Gospels were written later. That's just a recording of the stories that everybody knew to be true. They didn't become true just because they got written down. They were true before they were written down. Anyway, so Matt is right. The Gospels were written in Greek, not Aramaic. However, they were translated because the people speaking this stuff, Jesus didn't speak Greek. Another interesting thing, Peter died in Rome. He didn't speak Latin. He probably spoke very little Greek. Yet he converted his jailers. Anyway, enough of that. True, Hefe. So these are the things, the idea of Christology graduate school is to get people to think, to get people to question their beliefs. Where did this belief come from? And it doesn't make it worse, it makes it better. better, not worse. So it's not like disproving anything. It's actually making it much better, because it's like, wow, this is even more amazing than they say in church, where it's just, we worship you. That's not how it was, people. These people that are in church, we worship you, singing these goofy songs, I can assure you, if they were transported back to the upper room, it would be like, wow, this is nothing like I was taught. This is very different. Okay. Anyway, enough of that. That should be for, that topic should be for G School on the weekend. But it was a great class last night, a great 3 hours. Mind changing, because you read the material and you're reading the material and you're trying to make sense of the material. But when the professor puts it all together and clicks it in, you're reading the material. This council was for that. This council, they did this. This guy was there, and Nestorius was there. Arian was there. Here's what they're arguing, excommunicating each other, fighting about all of the stuff for the hundreds of years. And you get to the class and you find out, no, it's just about how hard it was to integrate Greek culture, Greek philosophy into a Jewish thing that was totally different. How do you meld Hinduism with Christianity, for example? Not like there's a Hindu part. It's just like, boom, it's one. And that's what ultimately happened by 451 at the Council of Chaldea, Chalcedon, Council of Chalcedon, 451. Boom, locked it in. Who was this Jesus? How could he? Anyway, boom. All right. Next topic. Yuval Harari. Stories. Right. And I think the segue to that, Yuval Harari talks about, why do humans control the planet? Because we're the only animals that can work flexibly in large numbers. Why are we the only ones who can work flexibly in large numbers? Because we can create stories that we believe. And if we believe the stories, we can work flexibly in large numbers. Religion is one of the greatest stories of all. And the key word is telling stories, not writing stories, not reading stories, not memorizing through the telling of the story. That is the key thing. If you create a story that people believe, then you can work flexibly with it. People understand. And so Yuval Harari goes talking about humans, direction, and talking about ourselves. We can be successful if large numbers of people will work flexibly with us. Skull-sized kingdom. If I can get large numbers of people to work flexibly with me, then I can have a big impact on my world, right? So how do you get people to work flexibly with you? You tell them the story, and if they believe the story, they will do it. And when you go to get a job, what is the story you want to believe? You want them to believe that you would be somebody good, worth hiring, or you would be somebody worth giving a promotion to, or you would be somebody whatever. So Yuval Harari is talking about humans controlling the planet, stories, fictions, fictional reality. We want to go the other way. We're watching it to get, if people believe me when I tell them things, in other words, they believe my story, they will work flexibly with me. And the other side of that coin, the most important side that our people don't seem to get, is if people don't believe you, they're not going to cooperate with you. The second they stop believing you, they're not going to cooperate. And we can then drill down into that even more and say, well, why don't I believe him? Is it because he's not believable, or is it because I have a maxim within me, like, don't trust people? Nobody's going to tell you the truth. And so the problem is, if somebody is telling you the truth and you have a maxim that says you can't trust people, what's going to happen? You're not going to believe them. So they're trying to help you. Here's a lifeline. Here's a path. Go follow that road. And you have an underlying maxim that you can't trust people because you get hurt, you're not going to do it. You're going to say it's them. I can't trust them. You got to go back and figure out that maximum. Okay, I'm going to say cut because we're at that time way overboard. And as you know, I have to get on the Peloton. People need to watch Yuval Harari today. I'll be there around 8. Matt and I will be leaving for Vegas sometime late morning, Matt. Late morning, not early. We don't need to be there till probably noon or 11:30. Okay? So Shivas and Shalom, people. Get those forms filled out, please.